honestly, I didn't really care to be alive, and that was a huge sign for me that I had no motivation to do anything.
Thank you so much for visiting with me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your interests, work, hobbies?
Yeah, so I'll just start off with my name.
Yeah.
My name is Jasmine, and currently I'm going to the University of Utah. I'll get my bachelor's degree in psychology this semester, and I actually just applied for grad school to be a clinical mental health counselor.
Wow.
Yeah, I got into the first portion of interviews yesterday. So I submitted my interview. We'll see how that goes. Hobby-wise, been kind of hard after getting recently married in school, but I really like to craft. I make spoon rings and polymer clay earrings. I like to go to the gym.
Okay, so we're going to talk today about depression. That's something that you have dealt with. So will you introduce kind of your experience to us? Maybe how old you were, how it kind of first began, and what that was like.
Yeah, so I was 17 on the swim team when I kind of noticed that I was getting super sad. And then I would joke a lot about it. I was in high school, I only really had one good friend, and to be kind of honest, it wasn't a great friend at the time influence-wise. And so I just got super sad. I started excluding myself from just high school events, whatever. I started thinking nothing was cool, feeling bad about myself. During this time, my mom got remarried. So kind of to preface, my father died when I was 4 months old. So my mom got remarried when I was 17. So that was a huge life change for me. So I also disconnected from my family. And I was depressed until I got help for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were the first signs for you that there was a problem? What were the red flags, or was there a certain issue? You said your mom got married, so did that kind of catapult it, or was it already there?
It was already there with my mom getting married. The stress of it, honestly, slingshotted it into, super high. But
Yeah.
it had already started. My lack of interest specifically is what I really noticed.
Okay.
Swim team wasn't important for me. I started missing a lot of the meets. I started coming up with excuses for stuff. It was my junior year, so I started skipping a lot of school and just not doing my homework. Honestly, I didn't really care to be alive, and that was a huge sign for me that I had no motivation to do anything.
Was anything important to you? Did anything matter?
No.
Nothing did. So can you pinpoint specific red flags that maybe helped you see something's wrong?
It was the joking.
Okay.
With my classmates, I would always joke about how I wanted to kill myself. And of course, being in high school, being a kid, you laugh at that stuff. And I chose to make a joke out of it. But I was really crying for help, someone please notice that I'm struggling. And I didn't go about it in the correct way. But that was a huge sign for me. That's honestly what I kind of became known as, was just kind of the emo girl.
So can you share some of your harder moments or some of the inner battles that you had?
Yeah, there was multiple. The first one that comes to mind was when I was 17, and I was a senior at this point. I have a late birthday, it's in June. And I was in ceramics class, and I don't know what happened, but one of my classmates made a joke that my mom didn't care about me. And I went into the back of the classroom and I just started crying. So that was a super low point to kind of take people's words in a joking way. It wasn't a great joke, but I took that really personally. Another time I was 18 and just in college now, didn't really want to make any friends, but still excited because it's a new environment, But driving to school, to the U, 20 minutes every single day, I just kind of always thought about how easily I could swerve my car into another lane and how my mom would know that I did it on purpose. Like, I thought that was normal every single day.
You didn't want your mom to know.
No.
Did she know that you not just were having those suicidal thoughts, but did she know that you were struggling at all?
Yes. And the problem with that is, so my mom is from the Philippines, and the Asian culture is very closed off to anything to do with mental health. And so it's not my mom's fault whatsoever. She just needed to learn, which she has now, which is incredible, but at the time, like, she didn't know how to help me because in her mind, I didn't need help. I just kind of needed to grow up.
So her culture was kind of keeping her from doing that. So what were some of your moments of triumph or overcoming?
So a huge part has to do with the fact that my father killed himself when I was 4 months old. That's how he passed away. And kind of an important part of that story is I didn't know how he passed away until I was 13. My mom told me that my father passed away of cancer, and I believed it. Yeah, and you can look at my mom kind of as like a villain in my story, but she's definitely not. Like, you look at it from, she's an immigrant from a country that does not deal with suicide or depression and anxiety, and to have her own husband die in that kind of a manner, I really do think she was just trying to protect her family, even though she didn't go about it in a great way. Like, she was trying to be a good mom. So for me, a moment of triumph was to do what my dad didn't and to speak up about it. And so since my mom wasn't super helpful during that time, I was 18 and I went to the doctor by myself.
So I want to ask how you proceeded through the times before you got help. I want to talk about some things you did to cope, or kind of how you would get through the days that were hard.
To be honest, I don't remember. Because I didn't do anything positive. I wasn't coping correctly during that time. So, like, if I try to think about 17 to 19, which is when I was really depressed, I don't really remember anything besides the fact that the whole stereotype of not getting out of bed for a whole day when you're super sad, that was my reality. Like, I did not get out of bed for 17 hours to go to the bathroom, to go get food. Like, I just laid in my bed. So that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, that's a hard question for me because I really lived my life, honestly, because I couldn't take it away. And that sounds super selfish, but because my father did that, that's honestly the only thing that stopped me. Which, thank goodness.
Yeah. But you didn't want to do that again to your family?
I couldn't.
So then you did get professional help?
Yes.
And you took yourself to the doctor. That's awesome. How did you know that you needed to, how did you know that you needed to get help? I want to know how you knew where to go. Was there anybody who was helpful to you in guiding you through that?
Okay, yes. So I have a brother who is 7 years older than me. His name is Austin. He wasn't living at home during the time that I was at home. He moved out when I was like 9. So, but we'd still see each other, and we have a really good connection, I think, because he did move out when I was so young. But my brother has been super helpful for me through the entire journey. I would talk to him about it. He kind of went through the same thing. So just kind of reassuring me that, you know, like, life is good, it's hard, but, you know, like, it gets better kind of thing. I started getting more interested in mental health. So my whole life I thought I wanted to be a nurse and help people physically. And so that's what I was going to college for. I got accepted into the NEAT program at the U, which is the Nursing Early Assurance program. So I got accepted into the nursing program as a freshman. So that's what I was studying, was to be a nurse. And I kind of just switched up my studying like mid-semester and just kind of learned that it's okay to feel these emotions. A lot of people do feel these emotions, and just kind of knowing that this is a normal thing. Like, I don't want to say it's normal to be depressed and to be sad, but to understand that it happens to a lot of people makes it a lot easier to cope and a lot easier to ask for help, because you know that help is available. So I kind of just gained the confidence. I realized, as awful as this sounds, like, I didn't want to be alive, but I couldn't take my life away. Like, that was my situation. So I just decided that, you know, instead of staying in my bed every single day, I might as well try to do something. And that was to go to the doctor. I'm pretty sure I went to the doctor for eczema, to be honest. And then my doctor actually mentioned something of, like, hey, how are you doing? And I could not make eye contact with her, which is super weird to me. Like, I just withheld myself from everybody, that I, like, forgot how to converse with people. So I looked at the floor and I said, good. And she was like, okay, tell me what you're doing in school, tell me what you're doing for work. And I told her. She asked me how much sleep I'm getting, you know, asked what doctors ask. And then she just said, like, hey, I think you're depressed. And I was like, yeah, me too. And she's like, okay, let's fix it.
So what was the course of action that you took? Was there counseling? Like, how did you move forward with that?
Yeah, so it started first with counseling. And the first time I went to a therapist, I was 18. And it wasn't great. I didn't connect with the counselor, and that is, like, I know now that is completely normal. But because my first interaction with a therapist wasn't great, I kind of closed myself off to it. So I went for about 4 or 5 months, and then I stopped going. Went through my whole thing of being sad, but still, you know, being alive. And then I went to a different counselor that I really connected with. And once taking the route of therapy for a couple months, I was continuing to go to my doctor. She knew all about my situation, about my mother and my home life, and we decided that although therapy was working really well for me, I was still suicidal. And for me, in medication, especially with my mom's influence of, like, oh, you don't need medication, I was really closed off to it. But to be completely honest, like, at that time, I just felt like I needed it. And so much growth had taken place within the 2 years. Like, I'm 19 at this point. So I had the confidence to stand up to my mom and say, I'm going on medication, I'm paying for it for myself. Like, I know you have negative associations with this, but if you want, you can talk to my doctor. Like, this is what I need. And my mom slowly became more supportive. It took a long time, but...
That's awesome that you were able to, like, stand up for what you needed and recognize that and get the help you needed. So as you move through life, you continue on, how do you manage your mental health now so that you don't go back to that negative place that you were?
Of course. So there's one moment specifically that, when I think about it, it was so hard. I'm done thinking about it. And I just, sometimes, like, I don't ever want to feel that way.
Yeah.
And I remember during that moment, I thought, like, this is harder than being dead. And so just reminding myself that I don't ever want to be there, that gives me so much hope. To know that I will never have to feel that way again, as long as I try. Like, that's what's most important, is just being open with myself, being open with others, and just continuing to try.
So do you continue to follow up with that same doctor and therapist, or?
Yeah, so actually I don't take medication anymore. I took it for 9 months, and I know that that is medication, that route is different for everybody. Therapy is different for everybody. And just for me, with assessing my emotions, talking to my doctor and my therapist, I felt like I didn't need to rely on them anymore. I'm very open to it. If I ever need to go back on it again, I'm very open. But for right now, I haven't taken medication coming on 2 years in March. Yeah, and I go to a therapist on and off when I need. Now I have more tools to know when I do need help, because as of right now, like, for the most part, I know how to assess what I'm feeling, and I know how to pinpoint exactly kind of like my personal stages, and so kind of like what to watch out for.
And did you learn those skills through therapy?
Yeah. And as I said before, or maybe I didn't, but I'm in psychology is my major now, and I'm applying to actually be a clinical mental health counselor. So I dropped out of nursing school, totally switched up my journey, and with school I've learned so much.
Yeah. That's been helpful to you.
Yeah.
And I think it's great now you kind of want to pay it forward
Yeah.
and help others. What advice would you give your younger self?
It all works out better than you think it does. I'm 21 and married, which to me is still really weird, because I thought, like, if I do get better, if I do get happy, you know, I'll be living a certain way, and life is so tricky. I would tell myself that I would just love life. Like, even on the days that life sucks, I'm so happy to be alive and to, like, feel emotions. Because when I was depressed, I didn't feel anything. I didn't have any connection with anybody. And so, like, even when I'm sad and I'm crying, like, it's incredible to me because I feel it all. So I would just tell myself that not only does it get better, sometimes it gets worse, but I am capable of handling it all.
That's beautiful. And that when you're feeling those sad emotions, that you know they don't last now.
Yeah.
That you'll be sad and then you'll be okay, because life is sad and life is happy and all those things. What advice would you give your future self?
My future self. I think just stay open-minded. Like I said, life is so unexpected, and with my journey right now, like in the present, I realize that happiness is so hard to find when you're not looking for it. And like, there's no one in this world, as much as we want to believe it, wakes up in the morning and is just automatically happy. Like, we have to make ourselves happy, and we have so much to be happy about. So for my future self, I think just to remind myself how far I've come and how much farther I have to go. And to some people that can seem daunting, but to me that is so exciting. So just to remind myself to keep going, and that I always have a good support system. And as long as I'm connected to myself, then I can handle anything.
I want to ask you, do you feel like there's been any blessings that have come from this difficult journey that you had to go through?
Yeah, a lot. So I actually, when it all kind of started happening for me when I was 17, I stopped believing in God. Oh my gosh, that's a huge thing for me. Because, so that really dark point in my life was when I stopped believing in God. And for me, I know it works for some people, and that is totally fine. But for me, it was terrifying to want to be dead and to think that there is nothing else for me. Because really, no one wants to die. We think we want to. And a lot of the blessings that have come with that have just been greater understanding for me. Like, understanding of how I view my world, how I view myself and my thoughts. There's been a lot of growth taking place. My relationship with Heavenly Father was really bad. I resented him for so long, blamed him for a really long time, and when I was 20, I started going back to church and being more open to the idea of a savior. And I would always tell my mom, like, it is so hard to believe in something that you blatantly denied for 2 years. But my faith has grown so strong because I've realized that even when I'm sad, like, I still get depressed. Like, I still have depressive weeks, and a couple months ago depressive months, and that just happens, and that's going to continue to happen. But as long as I just stay close with myself, and like I said, for me personally, like with my savior, that's super helpful for me. So a huge blessing that has come out of my journey is just realizing that I am not alone, even when physically I may feel like it.